feature that was brand new to me when I made the upgrade to my iPhone 17 was the dynamic island. It's something that's been around for a few years, and I would at least assume that to some extent it will stay around in the future. But I think that there's some missed potential. So I'm going to talk about the ways I already find it useful, try a list of apps that add some functionality to it, and then just brainstorm some of the things that I would love to see be added to it from Apple or even just other developers. But the way it works, almost as like a second display integrated into your existing display, I think is awesome, not just visually, but functionally. But what I've been loving it the most for recently is tracking sports scores with an app like Apple Sports. Having it very minimally display each team's score and also making it very easy to get more information or even like a play-by-play is great. My second favorite, and realistically the one I'm using the most, is the media control for something like Spotify. Again, I just like seeing the minimal display of the album or song cover on the left, and then the active waveform on the right, which I actually believe is color matched to the color of the album, which I think's a nice little cool aesthetic. And obviously being able to hold down on the island and being able to skip ahead of the song or skip the song entirely if you have some pretty mid-outdated playlists like me is genuinely useful, especially considering you could do all of that without actually having to open the Spotify app. And rapid firing the rest here, like having timers, Face ID, battery charge, airdrop, screen recordings, focus modes, shortcuts or visuals of something like your AirPods being connected and the charge. Also things like the action button functions are generally well integrated. I have it set to the ringer, but you can also do something which I haven't been able to use, like the translate, which pretty much in real time transcribes exactly what you're saying and then, well, translates it. You know, if I actually ever left my house to travel, that's something that I would use. And another pretty popular one is using the action button for the flashlight, which you can actually control the brightness and the width of your flashlight, which I don't really know when that's useful. For me, when I need a flashlight, it's just to light up the area, but that is pretty cool. And if you like to use the voice mode on ChatGPT, or you have an Apple TV or even a Tesla, although none of those actually apply to me, they do seem to add some decent functionality or at least cool visuals to the dynamic island. And you know, just as a disclaimer here, it's a pretty small feature. Although I am a fan of it, I don't think anyone, including myself, is gonna go out and buy an iPhone or not buy an iPhone specifically because of the dynamic island. So there are a lot of, I guess, visual cues that I do like that the dynamic island gives you. But I think for most people, the most useful ones are the ones around live activities. So that includes something like tracking sports scores, which I already mentioned, but also things like tracking your flights, your Uber or Lyft rides, your DoorDash, Uber Eats delivery services, even pickup order status on some apps like Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. Not Chipotle, which is the one I probably order online the most for. Please add that, Chipotle. But always having that information displayed invisible, whether it's like your gate number when your flight departs, when your DoorDash is coming, that's the type of already existing function that I think is most useful on the dynamic island. But with that, I still think there's quite a bit of missed potential. But first, I wanted to talk about some of the apps that are already out there that add some function to it. Now, these aren't apps like Spotify that just take advantage of the dynamic island, but rather apps that add more functionality to apps like Spotify. And that includes an app here that's called Dynamic Lyrics. And as you can probably assume, it just takes the lyrics and you can show it on your dynamic island. Now, as you can see in the middle here, the live activities, which is how you get it on your dynamic island, is a premium feature. But I don't really need lyrics on my dynamic island, although I do think it is cool. It's definitely a little bit gimmicky though, just like the next two apps I'm gonna show. The first one is Pixel Pals. As you can see up there, I have a little, what animal is that? A fox sleeping? Just a little touch of customization, I guess. If you hold down on it, you have some options. If you click play, looks like you can invite friends, and if I see that right, it's almost like a Pokemon style of battle. I don't know, I'm deleting this one immediately. And this one I'm not even counting as a part of my list, but it just has some custom wallpapers that kind of make the design around the dynamic island, which is kind of cool. The next gimmicky app is called Hit the Island, which is kind of like Pong, but your goal is to hit the dynamic island, and that's how you score points. But okay, back to something that actually might be useful to someone is this app here called Lock Launcher. If you go to features and then check off the dynamic island and dock, now your dynamic island works almost as a secondary dock where you can launch apps from. You can customize what it's actually launching. You can even take it a step further and launch a specific like Spotify playlist. But the part of it's kind of whatever to me. It's not that useful. What I think could be is being able to customize the left and right part of the display. You can do things like the date, the clock, the weather, and if you're a bit of a nerd, you can get access to all of these battery percentage, CPU percentage, frame rate, ProMotion rate. So like see, it says 60 Hertz up there. Then if I start swiping between pages, it goes up to 120 Hertz. The ProMotion display. Pretty awesome. So I mean, I think setting something like the month and day, and then on the other side, maybe something like the weather actually could be pretty useful. But again, it just doesn't take much to swipe down from the corner into Control Center and seeing the weather, the time, the date, and everything right there already. The dynamic island's supposed to be a clean, simple, minimal feature that is only activated when it's something useful. It seems like some of those apps kind of just makes it more clunky, but something like the Live Minder app is something that I would really want to see, even just as a toggleable on and off feature from Apple, because not everyone needs or even wants to be able to access their reminders using the dynamic island, but that is what Live Minder is supposed to offer, although I don't know if I can get it working. It says live notifications started, but when I swipe out, there's nothing. But an app that does work, and another one that I would love to have as a native Apple feature, is called Dynamic Notes. And you hold it down at the top and you can see some notes. Although I think we can expand on this and give it a little more real functionality. One thing that I would definitely want to see added is something similar to the Hot Corner Quick Note on the MacBook. It opens up a blank new note. And surprisingly, I actually use that quite a bit to write down things like title, thumbnail, or just general video ideas. So translating that to the dynamic island, if there's a way I could hold down on it and a quick note would pop up, or better yet, even being able to pin an existing note like a to-do list, that would be really helpful just to jot down quick ideas. But for the most part, the other functions that I think would work well with the dynamic island, Apple has to add it themselves to unlock it for other apps to take advantage of. A big one is having notifications be integrated with the island. Just for a visual example here, let's say you get a text. On the left side of the dynamic island is the iMessage app icon, and then on the right is the person who sent you the message's contact or profile picture. And just like how it works now, once it pops up, you can hold down on it or swipe down and respond to the message directly there. And by the way, I'm no animator. I'm gonna try to do some just for visual purposes, so sorry in advance because they probably suck. But this same format can apply to Instagram DMs, emails, really any other notification. But again, talking about how notifications appear makes zero difference on anyone's life, mine included. But I have thought of two ways where this can actually be useful. The first is being able to pin certain notifications to your dynamic island. By default, in an effort to not clutter up that top part, it'll look like nothing's showing, but when you hold down, that pinned notification will show up. And if you're using Spotify for media control or tracking a sports score, when you hold down to show that information, either above it or probably underneath it, that pinned notification will still show up and will disappear when you close out of it. My second idea is having all of your unopened notifications kind of rotating through almost as its own activity on the dynamic island. So just like in your notification center, how they stay there until you clear them, it'll be the app the notification from on one side, like Instagram, calls, emails, and either the type of notification, who it's from, when it was sent, or how many notifications there are on the other side. But another just small visual preference that I would like to see has to do with the volume and ringer animations. At the moment, the ringer does animate out from the dynamic island, but the volume adjusts on the side. I think it'd look a little bit cleaner if they just both adjust the same way. I think the only change I'd make is instead of how it is right now with the ringer, where you can only adjust it using your volume buttons, maybe have the bar pop out underneath and make it a little bit bigger so you can drag to adjust it like you can with the side volume right now. But I do realize two things. One is that some people might not want this. Two is that most people don't care. I've mentioned a few times how there should be settings to customize this, and I think just like how the action button has a whole dedicated settings tab, the dynamic island should too. I think on there you could control things like if notifications work how they normally do, or like how I mentioned, they animate out from the island, or if you want your unopened notifications to cycle through there or not, or if you just want the general ability to toggle dynamic island features for apps like notes or reminders, assuming they add some of the things I was talking about in the first place. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is type to Siri. Right now I double click the bottom and right there, I accidentally opened something on my dock. I think instead if it was double tapping the dynamic island to type to Siri, I would misclick things a lot less. And you could even have like a drop down menu of your history of typing to Siri, like in ChatGPT or other AI chats. I just want to get the discussion started because I think adding some app compatibility and just additional things can make the dynamic island more useful. Like again, it's a small feature that can be really nice to have, especially in some situations, but I don't even know if I would consider a game changer yet. If they add some of my stuff, it will be. Let me know what your thoughts are though, or what you want to see added, but thank you for watching and feel free to subscribe for more.